And welcome into the Strike Zone on 104.5 The Zone and Zone TV. No matter where you are, you can always watch the Strike Zone on Zone TV on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, or anything other place like Fire Stick, wherever, because you can just pull up your YouTube right there on your television. And you can be watching us right now as you eat dinner, because who doesn't want to eat dinner and talk about the Strike Zone and listen to some baseball talk? I would. My wife wouldn't be happy, but I would. Also, if you happen to miss any of the Strike Zone tonight, you can always follow us on all of our podcasting, no matter if it's Apple or Spotify or any of our other podcasting platforms. Go follow the Strike Zone. Go make sure that you follow 104.5 The Zone. And in that place, you will get the entire Strike Zone podcast, just in case you missed something, and you can go back and listen to it. Tonight, once again, I am in a suite, mainly because I wanted to broadcast directly outside from First Horizon Park, but with the weather and the clouds and the rain, and if you were watching last week, you kind of saw what happened when it began to rain. Then we decided, all right, let's go inside today. Suite 2 is where I'm at. The Elite Giants are directly behind me. They'll be joining me for the entirety of the Strike Zone tonight. That being said, F&M Bank Chat is wide open for you to get in on those comments, because over the course of the next month and a half, it's going to be a busy time in the city of Nashville. It's a busy time for the Sounds because they're on the road right now in Indianapolis. When they come back next week, that will be one of the last 3 homestands that the team actually has remaining here in 2023. And there's some cool things that they've been doing recently. The Stand Up to Cancer Night was last Saturday, and they just wrapped up their jersey auctions for that. But next Saturday is going to be Star Wars night. And this is extremely important, because if you didn't see the pictures, didn't see the video, didn't see everything across social media when it comes to Star Wars night here at First Horizon Park in 2022, this place had record numbers. Over 12,000 people were here at First Horizon Park for Star Wars night. Reason I'm telling you that, if you don't have your tickets already, go ahead, get those tickets for next Saturday night. Make sure that you are here, because yes, it's going to be Star Wars night. You can dress up. The only thing that the Sounds are really asking you to do is just don't cover your face. Okay. I know that kind of limits the whole Darth Vader thing, but just know that there are some requirements that the team has. They're on the Nashville Sounds websites. They kind of give you a list of what you can't wear to the ballpark. There's a couple of outfits that we know from Star Wars may not be appropriate. Okay. Just letting you know. But when you're also at the Nashville Sounds website, you can go ahead and bid on the jerseys that the Sounds are going to be wearing next Saturday night for this homestand. They are already up for auction, and you can already go ahead and start bidding on those. The cool thing that this is that the auction for this particular jersey is going to go to Creative Vets, which is an organization that helps men and women that are veterans be able to express themselves through arts, songs, video, all this other creative ways, painting, writing, all of this. And it really helps out veterans. And that's the reason why you need to go ahead and buy a jersey. Look, the cool thing about these jerseys, and we did this for the 615, that's the jersey I got this year, was that if you're already going to buy a Nashville Sounds jersey, if you go into the pro shop, those jerseys are $100+ anyway. And you can pick out which jersey you want. You can get the number or whatever, but you spend a little bit more. You get a jersey that was actually worn on the field, and the money goes to help an amazing cause in Creative Vets. And so that is where this auction is going to be helping here coming up in the next few weeks. And you can go ahead and bid on those jerseys right now. Now, based on what happened last week, there's a lot of Sounds that were here that aren't here anymore, and vice versa. By the way, let me clean up what we call dead wood. Every once in a while, there'll be something that happens and that you need to go ahead, and we totally forget about it. And I'm doing this legitimately on the fly because it just popped into my head. And the other day on 3HL, matter of fact, it might have been yesterday, as a matter of fact. But yesterday, on 3HL, we started talking about a play that happened in a Boston Red Sox game. Now, the thing about this happening is it was so crazy. Nobody actually believed that this actually took place. And we talked about it on 3HO, and we were talking a little bit of baseball. The craziest parts about what took place isn't that what happened, but it's more about who was involved in this. And I'm talking about the check swing that Luis Urias had for the Boston Red Sox in their game that they were going up against the Kansas City Royals. Now, here's where I need to clean this up, because not only was it Luis Urias that did this, but it was Pablo Reyes that hit the game-winning grand slam. Why do I bring this up? It's something that we didn't mention yesterday because it totally slipped my mind. Both of these guys are former Nashville Sounds. Both of them were playing for this team last season in 2022, and now both are not only were traded away from the Milwaukee Brewers, but now they are up in the major leagues with the parent clubs for the organizations that they got traded to. The crazy thing about this organization with the Milwaukee Brewers and with what the Nashville Sounds is, whenever we tell you to come out to the ballpark because you're going to see amazing talent, not only are you going to see like somebody like what happened last week where Brandon Woodruff is going to be doing a rehab stint, or you could possibly see Joey Votto the way that it happened at the very beginning of the season, but there are players that are on this roster that are going to be in the major leagues, if not this season, next season. A perfect example of this is a team that we've been talking about all season long. And I don't mean I mean baseball in general have been talking about, because it's an amazing story. Most of the stuff with this team has been, except for what happened the other day. That is the Baltimore Orioles. Because when the Norfolk Tides came to Nashville early in the season, if you look at the roster that was going on the field for the Norfolk Tides at First Horizon Park, almost every single one of those players now are either with another team because they were dealt at some point in time, or they're with the Baltimore Orioles. Not just, oh, they're in the organization. No, they're the reason why the Baltimore Orioles are one of, if not the top teams in the American League at this point in time in the season. Last year, Norfolk was not any good at the AAA level. They were amazing at the AA level. Why? Because those players that I just told you about were at the AA level. They got bumped up to AAA, and then early in the season, they all got moved up to the major league level, and that's the reason why the Baltimore Orioles are so good. Somebody that you want to pay attention to for the next time the Norfolk Tides come into town, which is going to be next year, unless he has an amazing spring training, could happen. Jackson Holliday, Matt Holliday's son, the number one player in the Baltimore Orioles organization. I think he actually may be the number one prospect in all of minor league baseball, will most likely be playing here. I say that because with the Nashville Sounds, Urias, Reyes, a lot of players, Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, a lot of players that were playing for this team last year and even parts of this season are now in the major leagues. And it was pre-trade deadline, not even post-trade deadline, pre-trade deadline. We talked about Sal Frelick and Bryce Terang. We've seen, Gasser is going to be probably your biggest name of a pitcher that is still here in the minor leagues. But Smalls and all these other players that have been moved up and going up to the parent organization. So look, just because the Nashville Sounds are not a major league team, I say right now, go back to former podcasts, you can hear what I'm talking about with that. I say the Nashville Sounds, even though they're not a major league team right now, the talent on this field night in and night out is absolutely amazing. So the Sounds only have 3 series left. And over the course of the next few weeks, you need to make your way out to the ballpark because they have Charlotte Knights coming up here next week. First game is going to be on the 15th. Then they have the Memphis Redbirds. So you get to see St. Louis Cardinals players as well as Milwaukee Brewers players. That's going to be in September. And then they finish off the regular season against the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Once this series is up with the Charlotte Knights next week, the Sounds will be away for almost 3 whole weeks on the road, in Gwinnett, in Durham, before coming back for the series against Memphis. So you only have a few series left. The cool thing about next week is really it's kind of the last hurrah, okay? Because school has already started. You have college football about to start. Heck, the NFL preseason starts in 2 nights for the Tennessee Titans. So you're starting to get into football season. High school football is coming up next week as well. So there's a lot of things that are about to happen. So really, this next series with the Charlotte Knights is kind of the swan song for the Major League or the minor league baseball season here in Nashville with the Nashville Sounds. So make sure that you come out and enjoy some baseball. Bid on those Nashville Sounds jerseys, the Star Wars Night jerseys. Those are already up for auction. Those are kind of the cool things that you just kind of want, at least want to make sure that you're here for. Now, just a few seconds ago, I kind of mentioned something about what happened in Baltimore over the last week. Now, it has been rectified. I believe that's the right word. If not, F&M Bank Chat, let me know how much I screwed up the English language, because I have a tendency of doing that. But there's been a few Kevin Browns in Major League Baseball that have been famous. You would have not put the play-by-play man for the Baltimore Orioles as one of those Kevin Browns until the other day, because pregame against the Tampa Bay Rays, Baltimore Orioles had just split the first few games, or the first 2 of the 3-game series, with the Tampa Bay Rays. And in the pregame for the television broadcast, Kevin Brown comes on the air and he says this.
For the Orioles, Brandon Hyde has felt like this has been maybe the toughest ballpark to play in, but the Orioles have a chance to do something special today. They've already clinched at least a split in the series, winning 2 of the first 3, and they can pick up a series win behind Tyler Wells today. It's been a minute. The Orioles split a 2-gamer with the Rays in June. They had lost their last 15 series here at Tropicana Field. You have to go back to when our now colleague Brad Brock picked up the win in the series finale, June 25th, 2017, the last time the Orioles won a series here at St. Pete. Already got 3-2 at the Trop this year after winning 3 of 18 the previous 3 years combined. It is a stark difference, Ben, and it is not a bad Rays team. It's not like all of a sudden the Rays became slouches in the American League East. They've led this division every day but now 2, and the Orioles once again are back alone in first place.
That was what he said. Now I'm going to let you behind the curtain a little bit, because a lot of times people don't understand this. Every single game, no matter which game it is and which sport it is, there are amazing people in the background. And I'm for you that don't know, and if you have never been in one of the suites, directly behind where I'm at right now, that is where the offices are for the Nashville Sounds. There's some tremendous people in this office that their job is to come up with unique stats and unique information so that they can send out what we call game notes for every single game. Colin Perry, who I was just talking to just a moment ago before we started the Strike Zone, him and I were talking about a lot of things with the Sounds. Him and I are actually, he was the reason why we even brought up how many Sounds players are doing as well as they are right now in the major leagues, because he was the one that reminded me of that. And so him and I were talking, and then he had to go back because he had to get the game notes out for the game that the Sounds are about to start with the Indianapolis Indians. So when these game notes come out, and I'll pull them up right now, because as a matter of fact, as I was talking to you, he just sent them out across all of their media affiliates, and it comes in a thing and it says game notes for tonight's game at Victory Field. And so you pull this little document up, and sometimes for minor league teams, it's anywhere between 15 to 25 pages. If you go to a Major League Baseball game, there's sometimes 45 to 50 pages. And for the Tennessee Titans, when they put their game notes out every single week, that thing can almost be 70 pages just in itself. And every bit of that is information and trends and stuff that you could potentially see in the game if X player decides to get 100-yard receiving, or if this guy hits 2 home runs, where he will be in team history, all these fun little unique facts. Like tonight, the update for the Nashville Sounds that they sent to us has to do with one name, and specifically Jared Jones. And I'll read this verbatim so that you kind of get the idea of what happens in those game notes. It says, 22-year-old Jared Jones starts for Indianapolis in Game 2. The number 9 overall prospect in baseball, and he's the number 5 prospect in the Pirates organization. He is 3-5 with a 3.31 ERA in 18 games. And he is a native of California, and he was selected in the second round of the 2020 first-year player draft. There's tons and tons of information just like that in these game notes. I bring that up because every single thing that Kevin Brown said in that broadcast and that audio that we just played, every single bit of that was given to him by the Tampa Bay Rays organization. Every single bit of it. Nothing he said and nothing you heard just then was anything that he came up with on his own. It was nothing that he went out and did the information and he went to StatHead or he went to Baseball Reference and he was the one that said, oh, let me get all these numbers and let me figure out a way to bash the team. No, he was using it as a compliment for the team. And this is where I have to absolutely compliment the Tennessee Titans and what we do with them on 104.5 The Zone, because it is something that at any point in time, and we say this all the time behind the scenes, at any point in time, you could get in trouble for something that you say about a team or about an organization. We have had people in the organization or people across the media landscape that have gotten in trouble for things they have said because the parent team was not happy. But the great thing about the Tennessee Titans are they allow us, 3HL, Buck Rising, Blaine and Mickey, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, they allow us to be us, even though we are the flagship station. We don't have to blow smoke up your tail. The things that we do on 3HL, we do them because we are genuinely excited about something. There are a lot of organizations that would not be happy with the jokes that I have made about Dennis Daly or the joke that I made yesterday about Caleb Farley. They would not be happy about that. They would probably shoot a text message to the program director or the market manager and be, look, we got our contract coming up here in the next few months, and, we kind of need you guys to talk better about us if you're going to be the flagship station of our organization. That happens. That legitimately happens. But the other thing is that the Tennessee Titans are the exact same way with Mike Keith, with Coach Mack, with Rhett. So, for instance, let's use the Indianapolis Colts as an example. There was a period of time for the Tennessee Titans where from 2011 to 2017, they did not beat the Indianapolis Colts. That means if Mike Keith would have done the exact same thing that Kevin Brown did the other night and came on the air and said, welcome to Nissan Stadium, where the Tennessee Titans are currently on an 11-game losing streak to their bitter rival, the Indianapolis Colts, Mike Keith would be suspended. That is the equivalent of exactly what just happened to Kevin Brown. Now, the backlash, thankfully, has gotten Kevin Brown back on the air. He will be back on the air tomorrow night for the Baltimore Orioles. This happens a lot more than what you think, because there are a lot of teams that do not want you to talk about the bat. Hate to break it to you when you're the Baltimore Orioles, and the closest that you've even gotten to a World Series, not just a World Series championship, but to a World Series, was almost 30 years ago, but you had a little 10-year-old in the Bronx decide to reach his glove over the wall and totally screw you over. That's the last time that you were even close to a World Series, there's a lot of bad that you've got to talk about. And that was even with the teams that the Baltimore Orioles had just a few years ago. There were a few years ago where the Baltimore Orioles, from a power standpoint, were stacked. That was the Chris Davis years, when Chris Davis was an amazing home run hitter and was blasting bombs everywhere. I know he's still getting paid by the Baltimore Orioles, but that was that period of time. They had, like, I think Jonathan, like, Scoop or however you say his name, was the shortstop, and you had these power hitting players left and right for them, and Chris Davis was the biggest one. This is when Adam Jones was playing center field for the Baltimore Orioles. This team was stacked power-wise, and you still couldn't really even make it close to the World Series. You've had a lot of bad. This team is fantastic this year. They definitely are going to be in the playoffs. They could potentially be in the ALCS, maybe even the World Series. Don't bash your guys because they literally said something for a broadcast that you gave them the information to. Because again, behind the curtain, it's not just that Kevin Brown said the information. I know I played the audio for you. There were graphics. There was a production meeting. There were 20 people that were on board and in this to talk about what was about to happen. And what you didn't hear was the Chris Collinsworth slide that was about to take place, because Kevin used that as a transition to what he was about to talk to with his color analyst about the fact that the Baltimore Orioles have already won more games in Tropicana in this last season than they had in years. And they're trying to beat that in that game that day. That's why I do have to say I'm extremely thankful for what the Tennessee Titans allow us to do, for what the Tennessee Vols allow us to do. And I mean us as in people that are on the radio station day in and day out, or even people like Rhett Bryan that have the ability to come on and talk about how the offensive line isn't doing well like they did last season. Coach Mack talking about, guys, it's not a secret. Look at the numbers. You can see that these players aren't playing well. The Titans allow. Look how many bad seasons that the Tennessee Vols have had and how many years they've been on 104.5, and their people have come on and talked to us and been honest with us. We appreciate that, because you can see, and this is a perfect example of that with the Baltimore Orioles, how quickly life can just go sideways at any point in time. Kind of like if you were the Arizona Diamondbacks, maybe if you're the New York Mets, Cincinnati Reds, Anaheim Angels, kind of like how your season just totally got flipped right after the trade deadline. Now, one like the New York Mets, it was going to happen. That was definitely going to happen because you traded everybody away. I'm not just going to harp on the Angels, because we have talked about, Shohei Ohtani, you should have traded him. He would have given you plenty, and I mean plenty, of prospects that you could rebuild arguably the worst minor league system in professional baseball, and you didn't do it. Now, going into today, the Anaheim Angels are 7 games behind the Toronto Blue Jays for the final wild card spot. 7 games. Going into today, the Anaheim Angels were 2-6 since August 1st. The Arizona Diamondbacks were 0-7 since August 1st. The Cincinnati Reds, 1-7 since August 1st. I say August 1st because that's the trade deadline. Cincinnati Reds didn't do anything except for not do anything. And right now, the Chicago Cubs are ahead of the Cincinnati Reds in the standings by literally a point millimeter. Okay, they're both a half game back of the Miami Marlins. Yeah, you heard me right, the Miami Marlins for the 3rd wild card spot. And the Cincinnati Reds were leading the division when the trade deadline wrapped up. And they did nothing. Not only did the Cincinnati Reds not do anything at the trade deadline, they also, let me check the notes because this is what we talked about, the trade deadline. Yes, they have one of the worst ERAs in baseball going into the August 1st trade deadline. And guess what you still have? Over the last 10 days, the Cincinnati Reds are 1-8. They have a 7.41 ERA, the worst in baseball. Yet you didn't trade for help. You didn't bring any pitching in whatsoever. And you are now 1-8 since the trade deadline. This is the type of thing that gets general managers fired. Now, Cincinnati may be playing the long game. We know Anaheim isn't, so I'm not even going to try to compliment them. The Cincinnati Reds have the worst ERA in baseball since August 1st. You know who doesn't? The Texas Rangers. Oh, they traded for Max Scherzer, who has actually been pitching well for them. Also, look at this. Oh, the LA Dodgers, who have now skyrocketed up the NL West standings. They're 8-1, the best record since August 1st, and they almost have a sub-3 ERA. The Texas Rangers have a 2.03 ERA. Still, without Jacob deGrom because he's done for the season, but they added Max Scherzer. The Milwaukee Brewers, the parent club, the club that is now leading the NL Central. 3.47 ERA. It is the 8th best in Major League Baseball. The Philadelphia Phillies, who, looking at this, now currently are sitting at the number 1 wildcard position. They have a 3.80 ERA, which is one of the top 10 in baseball. Matter of fact, looking at this right now at the moment as we speak, the 3 teams that have arguably the best ERAs here in baseball are teams that are close to the wild card ratings, if our leads, if not, they're currently in them. And the AL, Tampa, Houston, Toronto are currently leading and have the 3 wild card spots. And Seattle, who right now, since the trade deadline, have the 3rd best ERA, are sitting at 2 games back. This is how important the trade deadline was, especially pitching-wise. Offensive-wise, those numbers, yes, they play a factor into this. But a lot of this has more to do with the fact that you sat on your hands and you didn't do anything than what you did do. Before anybody asked, the Atlanta Braves are literally dead center in the middle of Major League Baseball when it comes to their ERA over the course of the last 10 days. They're sitting at 16th, 4.57 ERA. They're 5-3 since the trade deadline. I knew that question was going to be asked, so I wanted to go ahead and tell you. What are you doing, Cincinnati? You can't fix it now because now there's nothing that you can add that can actually benefit you going into the next 2 months of the regular season and try to get you into the playoffs, because all you're going to be able to do is do this offensively. But to be at this very moment one of the worst teams in baseball, the worst team in baseball, 1-8, 7.41 ERA, and you did not improve your team whatsoever, and you were leading the NL Central. Leading. You are currently 1-8. And the team that was behind you is only 5-4. Milwaukee is not like they've been playing amazing, but they're only 5-4. And they took over the lead in the division. And now, not only are you not a wild card team, at the moment you're a half game back from the Chicago Cubs, who are 6-4 over the last 10 games. And they have now went up front of you percentage-wise by like a millimeter, but they're in a better position right now to be a wild card team than what you are. San Francisco made moves. Miami, they couldn't really make moves, but they haven't been bad all season long. The only team that the Miami Marlins have been bad against are the Atlanta Braves. The rest of Major League Baseball, the Miami Marlins have been tremendous. Cincinnati, you gotta do better. Just since the season started, so many Reds fans have kind of come out of the closet and been excited about Reds baseball. And you have almost an 8 ERA since the trade deadline after you did nothing. Now, before we wrap up tonight, there's something important that I do want to talk to you about because it's something I never stray away from talking about. In fact, I actually enjoy talking about it. It's something that it's like a big, what we call it at my house is this red dot. And for me and my family, and especially my son, because him and I talk about our emotions a lot, when you get frustrated, when you get angry, you have this red dot that grows. When you're happy, it's a green dot. Okay, we're using just like a red light. Green, good. Yellow, red, bad. Okay, green, go. Yellow, you're kind of getting there, but you just need to, use caution. Red, stop. Because red's bad. And so we talk about our emotions a lot, and we talk about our feelings, and we talk about how we're doing with certain situations in life. He just started preschool, he just started pre-K, not preschool, but pre-K. This is like his 5th day. And so we talk about things because it's a brand new building. It's a brand new atmosphere. There is, I want to say maybe just one kid that was in his preschool that is now also in pre-K program with him. Now we're at a school in Alabama that has hundreds and hundreds of kids. Like it's one of those classes like here locally that whenever it comes graduation day, there's 500 and 600 people that are graduating just from a senior class. If you were quizzed on how many people's names in your senior class you could remember, you would totally fail it because you can't remember everybody's name. And so he's at one of these schools, and the preschool that he was at was a house. I mean, it was a legitimate house that had been gutted and turned into a school. So each room was a different level and different age range, and he was in the highest. And so, that class may have had 10 kids total. Well, now he goes into a school where there's 25 kids just in his class. And so the transition for him has been surprisingly amazing. It has been. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure of, how are you feeling? Is it overwhelming? Is there, are you sad? Are you nervous? Are you scared? Are there things that are happening in your life right now that it's a lot? I mean, his sister was just born a few months ago. She's now 4 months old. So that's been a major change. He just left a school that he'd been at for 2 years, and he's going to a real school, like a real pre-K program, because it's in the elementary school in the city we live in Hazel Green. And so there's a lot of changes taking place. So I want him to be able to vocalize this with me. I bring this up because the mental health side of sports is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. But with the excitement of a lot of kids going back to high school and getting ready for the football season, or a lot of your older kids / adults going to college and going into their junior year, senior year of college, there are other kids / adults that are doing something that they have never done before in their life. There are certain kids that were seniors in high school that played a sport, football, basketball, baseball, and they're not doing that as a freshman in college. There are younger kids that were in 8th grade and may have played football or basketball or baseball or softball. I'm talking men and women, girls and boys, that when they got to high school, they may have tried out and they didn't make the team. There are young adults, 20, 21, 22 years old, that played their last college game months ago and are now in the workforce, that are now trying to find jobs. Check on these people. I mean it wholeheartedly. Check on them. Because there's a transition in life that a lot of times we as athletes are not prepared for. I was not prepared when I decided to end my career and go into radio. I was not prepared. And I thought I was good because I immediately left playing baseball and immediately went into radio. And I was good for a little bit because it was summertime. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's summertime. I was still working out, still had the option to go back. And because I still had a year of eligibility left. And I thought about it and I eventually said no. So I was good for the entire summer. It was when everybody went back. And you started seeing the pictures on Facebook, and you started seeing Instagram, and you started seeing all these videos of people going to their first day of school, or, hey, going to practice for the first time of the school year, and all this other stuff. And it was difficult. You kind of felt left out. You felt sad. You felt like you were missing something, and it messed with you mentally. I can be honest about it now because I now know from being in a better headspace that there was probably a good 4 to 5 years of my life after baseball. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue who I was. I had no clue of anything. And I was in radio and I was doing all this stuff and I was out and seeing people and meeting people, but it was a different identity. And I know that if you've played sports, you know what I'm talking about. Your sport becomes your identity. Whether it is football, like we're getting close to starting here next week, or if it is baseball or basketball, everything you do, there's always that title. Okay, we hate the title sometimes, but also it kind of feels good because you feel like you're involved in something, like you're a part of a group. Hey, he's a baseball player. Hey, he's a football player. Hey, he's a basketball player. You kind of feel part of that group. It's the moment that they put that word in front of it. Yeah, you used to play football. Yeah, you used to play basketball. Yeah, you used to play baseball. It kind of hits you in the gut, and you don't expect it. You really don't. And I struggled with it. I struggled with it bad. There were periods of time in my life after I played baseball that's when the suicidal thoughts came in. That's when I began to harm myself. That is when I literally was doing whatever I possibly could to feel love and affection, because for the longest time, my ability to hit a baseball extremely far was how I got my love and affection. I was picked on in high school through probably March of my freshman year until I hit my first home run in my freshman year of high school. And the very next day I came back to school and everything changed. Nobody picked on me anymore. Nobody joked on me. Nobody made fun of me. Everybody was like, okay, that guy can hit. He's cool. He's, somebody that we're no longer going to pick on because he's doing something that helps us. It's a messed up way of thinking, but that's how high school is. That's how middle school is. That's how college is. There are college freshmen right now that are getting ready for their first college football game here in the next couple of weeks, and they still don't feel a part of the group, but they will when they hit somebody for the first time during a game. And they get that appreciation and that cheer from the crowd and that admiration from their teammates. Like, that is what drives you a lot of times. When that goes away and you're going to a quote unquote 9-to-5 job, that's when this all becomes hard. When your day is not surrounded by, hey, I've got practice at this time. Hey, I've got workouts at this time. Hey, I need to go do a little extra work in the cage, or hey, I need to go do a little bit more weights, or I need to stretch, or I need to do some, calisthenics, or I need to do some yoga just to stretch out my back, whatever it is. When that is not a priority anymore, we struggle. We struggle mentally because we want to act like everything's cool. We want to act like it's fun. But then you go back to your first high school game since you graduated, and you kind of see how the world just continues to move on, and you're just sitting there thinking, these people don't care about me anymore. Somebody doesn't care about me anymore. These people that were cheering for me last October because I scored a touchdown to help us get to the playoffs, they don't care about me anymore. And it does mess with you a lot mentally. It's actually the reason why a lot of athletes gain that freshman 10 or 20 or whatever, because they go to college and they're trying to find that acceptance because they really don't know how to handle post-athletic life. Some people find healthy ways, but there are some that don't. check on them. Let them know, hey, I want to make sure you're okay. Because the next few weeks are going to be very hard for some of those athletes. Some of those guys that maybe chose not to do something in college, or some of those guys that finished up college and may have got cut from a pro team, may have an injury, and they weren't able to continue their career. And they're trying to find a real job and wake up every single day and do a normal life. Check on them. Let them know that if they need to talk, that you are there for them. If you're listening to this now, if you need somebody to talk to, hit me up. Because I know how hard this is. I know that you're going to think that you're fine, and then you're going to go to that first high school game, or you're going to go to that first college game, and you're going to realize that, all right, this is really happening. This is really it. And it's extremely tough for people mentally to talk about this sort of thing. It is. It was tough for me for a long time because with men, a lot of times we don't like that whole, hey, we're weak type thing. But it goes back to what I started with green dot, red dot. What then happens is we lash out, we get mad, we get upset, and we take it out on people, and it has nothing to do with what actually just happened. You have that cup, and it's totally empty, and something happens, and it means a little bit more water gets put in, and a little bit more water gets put in, a little bit more water gets put in. And then something like the high school football game takes place, and there's a freshman in college that goes back, and he sees it, and everything's like, wow, this sucks. Like, this really kind of, like, this hits me in the heart. This makes me sad. And then that cup goes almost up to the very tip top, but there's still just a little bit left, a little bit of space. And then something small happens. He gets something on his shirt while he's eating dinner or something, and the next thing you know, he blows up. It wasn't the fact he got wing sauce on his shirt. It's the fact that the football game got him into this place, and the wings finally filled his cup up and overflowed. Check on these people, because I know from my life, I was not okay. Even though I was still playing baseball, it was still weird for me to go back and watch the school that I'd spent 13 years of my life, like, not need me anymore. My number not be up, my name not be places, none of the stuff that I did for a period of time for it to all be gone because the new senior stuff is all up. I get that. And if you have a teenager, you have a young adult that's going through this, let them know that they can talk to you. And I mean genuinely, not, hey, bro, you doing good? All right, cool. No, legitimately. Hey, man, I want to know you're okay because this is tough. This is important this time of year because as excited as a lot of us are for high school football to start, for the college football season to start, for the NFL to start, there are people that do not know how to make that transition. And it's okay because that's part of being an athlete is figuring out that journey. We have professional athletes that are figuring that out right now. Not everybody can be a Taylor Lewan and they can go from doing what they did in the NFL to then going and being this multimedia person that he's become with Bussin' with the Boys. We can't all do that. I can guarantee you, though, that first game against the Saints, this is going to happen to Taylor Lewan, and he's going to sit there and be like, wow, this sucks. So check on your friends, check on your kids, check on anybody you know that was once one of these people and now having to have that quote unquote normal life. Because this week, the next few weeks could be very difficult for them. Mental health is important. That's the reason why we bring it up. It's also important that you follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. Not as important as mental health, but yeah, football starts next week. Madden drops on Monday. We get to do the very first Gamer Zone Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, right here on Zone TV. Thursday night, we're back here at the ballpark for the Strike Zone at 7 o'clock. Friday night, we have high school football, and I'll be on immediately following the very first high school football game on 104.5 The Zone for postgame. Then, of course, you still have Titans, and you still have all that getting ready and getting going as well. we're about to start a busy week. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. Make sure that you join us out for the 20-year anniversary party that we're going to be having out at Yazoo coming up tomorrow. We're going to be there all day. Come out, have a beer, have some fun, joke around with some 104.5 The Zone talent, and just kind of hang out with us all the way up past 6 o'clock. Not to 6 o'clock, past 6 o'clock, because we're all going to be there for a while. So come down, join us, and I'll talk to you next Thursday night, 7 o'clock, right here on the